So know that your heart is strong, know that your muscles are strong, know that your bones are strong, know that your mind is functioning well, sleep well, don't drink too much, and just be generally moderate in most things all the time, and you will live for longer. We know that for sure.
Arguably the world's most successful personal trainer, Matt Roberts has published 13 books in 24 countries and built a multi-million-pound personal training empire from the ground up, training the world's elite and known as the original celebrity fitness trainer.
You've been in the industry for 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years.
And you've transformed very famous physiques. Can you name a few that I might know?
In the politics world, I guess the one that's probably most well known is David Cameron when he was the Prime Minister. And that was interesting because actually being around a situation where people say they haven't got time to work out. This guy's running the country and still he made the time.
You could have changed the course of Brexit. What happened there?
You owe it to yourself to be the best version of yourself. That's what we're here for. We're not here to just dilapidate. Mm-hmm. We're here to do something. And I've got teams of medics, physios, trainers, dietitians, hormone specialists, all sorts of different interesting people we bring into the mix from outside my own team. And I've got a team that deliver my vision of what the body needs to be doing and solve the problems along the way.
Cheat meals. How often should we have them? Should we have them actually in the first place? Matt, if you had to compress all your knowledge that you have acquired in the last 30 years of your career into one essential advice that we should all follow, what would it be?
All of my life into one sentence. Fundamentally, the key thing definitely is to
Matt, how would you best describe the work you do?
I would say my work has become one really a focus on how can we make sure someone is able to understand how to improve their health span. That's the fundamental goal of what I do, what my company does, what all those people inside my company do. It's not about going for purely an aesthetic. What we do is make people have the opportunity to live every single day of their life to the utmost until the end. Now, that might not be a longer end, it might be, but it's more about what can we do while you're living to make sure every day you're at your best possible place you can be.
If I had a look at your CV right now, what would I see that would ensure me that you are a subject matter expert in this topic?
So it's a good question in that I can't know all things. So I know a lot, and I've studied a lot, and I've learned a lot, and that's great. I have a great team, and honestly, the reality of looking at how bodies best work is that it's complicated. I mean, it's a very, very interesting, incredible working system. And I've got teams of medics, physios, trainers, dietitians, hormone specialists, all sorts of different interesting people we bring into the mix from outside my own team. And I've got a team that deliver my vision of what the body needs to be doing and solve the problems along the way. My own background is having trained with the American College of Sports Medicine to do what I do many years ago now. And since then, I've been to endless seminars, given lectures at endless seminars, and being the person people listen to on this stuff. Being a professor at universities on invitation, which is always interesting to see what the learning capacity is like at people's key learning ages. So I've seen a lot, done a lot, but I'd say, again, it's down to having phenomenal people who individually have studied their respective areas phenomenally well.
I believe that in order for someone to become the best at whatever it is that they want to do, they need to love that thing. Why is this important to you? Well,
I think there's two answers to that. One is that you can see what's happening to the state of the nation. You can see what's happening population-wise.
What's happening?
Well, we're getting significantly fatter, lazier, and we're dying at ages that we shouldn't be dying. What's amazing is we actually haven't increased our lifespan as much as we should have and could have in the last 30, 40 years. It's increased a bit, but mainly off medication. We're seeing trend lines of children by the age of by the year 2040 or 50, maybe half of our kids in this country, in the UK, being obese, not just overweight, but obese. We're seeing people with all manner of conditions that are highly preventable by being active and moving more. And I find it really important that we, as a nation, as Western nations, as this nation, we're healthy and we're better. Besides anything else, because I really detest the fact that we have to pay for all the medical services that we have to provide. The NHS may do good work, but it's just too big and too bloated. And the reason is that we're not healthy enough, and we're not doing enough, and we're not doing enough for our children. And I think economically as a country, we have a need to make sure we have an unbelievable, strong, healthy working workforce. And we're not going to have that if our kids are not healthy while they're in their key stage years, being in primary school, being in that development, puberty years. We aren't going to have people to be focused going forward. So there's kind of a bigger picture thing, which I think is important as a citizen of the country. I think it's important we give back. At the same time as well, I'm a 51-year-old male. My intention when I turned 30, I know you're getting to that point now as well, was to make sure I was in the same shape as when I was 20, 21 years old, when I was training as an athlete. And when I was 30, it seemed old, by the way, and it's not, by the way. My goal was to make sure I was the same shape.
Good to know.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because you think it's crazy old, and really, trust me, there's a long way to go on this stuff. And to get to 30 and be the same shape as 20 was my intention. Clearly, that's easy because you're 29, 30 years old. So I thought, okay, when I get to 40, I need to be the same shape as when I was 30 and therefore 20. Managed to do that as well. When I turned 50, yeah. So what's good about having been quite a high-level athlete and getting into what I do now early on is I have lots of metrics and data from that time. So my muscle mass, my body fat percentage, my VO2 scores, and so on and so on. I've got all that data from a long time ago. So it's very clear what the metrics were to sustain and maintain. So turning 50 last year, there was a clear goal to be at the same shape. And I'm within 1.5% body fat to where I was when I was 21 years old.
Jesus Christ.
And I'm the same weight, and my strength is, if anything, marginally higher.
To what do you attribute this?
So this is the thing. So the point about the reason why I'm passionate about this is it's finding and unlocking the answer to how you can actually slow down the aging process and make sure you stay exactly as you want to be.
What's your body fat percentage at the
It's
age of 50?
around 8.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, when I was in my very, very peak sprinting years as an athlete, it's probably a bit less than 2% out of that.
So within the last 30 years of your life, did you feel like you had to sacrifice a lot in order for you to retain these?
Yeah, you have to be increasingly really careful. You have to make sure you do the groundwork. So the process of how I train has had to adjust. If I tried to do the same sessions when I was 21 years old, I'd be crawling out of bed every morning and screaming, because you can't recover quite as quickly. Even with all the best supplementation, the right dietary approach, and the recovery strategies, you just can't recover quite as quickly. It's marginal, but it's slightly different.
And how quickly does that change? So every 10 years, every 5 years? It's
sort of ongoing. I mean, the thing is, the horrifying thing for males, and this is ahead of you, is from the age of about 35, unless you take care of yourself, things like your testosterone levels begin to fall. Again, I have my data from when I was in my 20s, and mine are within 10% of where they were when I was in my 20s. Now, the average fall off is you lose maybe 25% in the ages of 35 to 45, maybe 25% thereafter. It goes down rapidly in that 40 to 60 time span. Now, with that, you get then loss of muscle mass, sarcopenia. We lose 8% of our muscle mass.
What's sarcopenia?
Muscle mass loss. So if you do just the basics and you tick along, you'll still be losing muscle mass. So it takes a lot of work to retain the muscle mass after the age of about 35 to 40. Before that, it's a bit easier because you're more pumped up with different hormones. There's a high blood supply, tend to be better sleep patterns. And even someone is out drinking, which does strip away muscle mass as well, by the way, even if someone's doing that, they still retain muscle mass. When you get slightly older, that gets much tougher. From the age of about 40, you lose 8, 10, 12% muscle mass every decade. So by the time you get to being in your 60s, you've lost a whole chunk of muscle mass. And of course, the more you're losing that, the more you're going to retain visceral fats, internal fats, the dangerous ones around the internal organs. So then you have to got to combine, therefore, beyond the age of really 30, really focusing on that muscle mass retention. I don't mean getting big, I mean getting strong. You've got to be really, really strong. Strength training for strength rather than size should be everybody's fundamental goal.
Is it true that our body, our muscles have memory, in the sense that if I've been training for the last 20 years of my life, is it going to be easier for myself to not go off the rails if I stop training for a week or two, or to stay in shape for that matter?
You create, yes, the answer is yes. You create nervous pathways. And with those nervous pathways, they don't go anywhere. So once you've got them, you create them, they stick around, they stop working for a bit, they're dormant. The muscle structures you're creating, with muscle creation, you're creating layers of fibers. And those layers of fibers, once they're created, don't really go away, but they can get just kind of diminished in size. So once you start to work again, they get more blood pumped into them, they get slightly larger and more activation, the nervous system starts to work harder again. So your body responds pretty quickly. So if someone's been an athlete in their teens and 20s and they stop for 10 years and they gain 15 kilos in fat and they look like crap and they feel like it's all wrong. If they start working out again, they've got a significantly better chance of being in shape, of course, more quickly than someone who has never done anything. The key is to actually protect for the future where you are now. It's in your teen years through to being 30. If you build muscle strength, cardio capabilities, your whole nervous pathway activations, so doing coordination stuff, playing sports, really important, doing anything which is balance-based, gives you an insurance policy for the future. With bone density, shockingly, our bones reach peak bone density, the strongest they'll ever be is when you're 24 years old. So from 24 years onwards, your bones are getting progressively weaker and more porous. So your risk when you're 30 is neither here nor there. When you're 40, by 50 and 60 and 70, because you didn't do the work you should have been doing when you're in your teens and 20s.
Incredible. So my bones already peaked.
You peaked already. You're going downhill already. But the thing is, you're not, because you're working out.
Yeah.
So you can do all these things at prevention level to make sure that what we do is we step in and nothing changes. And the reality is our strength loss, if you work on it over a 20, 30 year period from being 25 to 45 can be a loss of maybe 2-3%. So if you really stay on it, it's an insurance policy for the future, but it starts when you're in your teens and 20s. So for me, back to your answer, your question, is that my goal within all this, the passion side comes from, I do not want to go backwards. I want to make sure that I can go and I love playing tennis. So I like to play tennis. I want to make sure I'm playing tennis, not just because I want to play some. I want to go and really hit and compete and be at it. I want to go maybe walk up Mont Blanc and do a hike there. I want to go and do that, not think about it, and be able to, when I'm 50 and 60 and 70, be able to do the same things. Otherwise, you take away the joy of living. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, so I get a real kind of a rush from driving cars fast around tracks and doing kind of mountain biking and going down hills at speed and all that kind of stuff. I get a real charge up from it. And it's been proven actually through various tests that I need, not just I like it, I actually need adrenaline to really get fired up. So I need to make sure I can do those things now and in 10 years' time and 20 years' time.
Revealing, shockingly interesting. You've been in the industry for just a bit over 25 years.
30, actually.
30 years.
Yeah, 30 years.
And you've transformed very famous physiques in the fashion, sports, even politicians. Can you name a few that I might know?
There's a few you might know.
Okay.
In the politics world, I guess the one that's probably most well known is David Cameron when he was the Prime Minister. And that was interesting because actually being around a situation where people say they haven't got time to work out. This guy's running the country and at a key critical time, as always is key critical times in politics. And still, made the time, put the effort in.
So you were training him while he was Prime Minister?
Yeah, I set a gym up in number 10 and we had that. We'd go running in the parks, we'd play some tennis and
I'm sure he was opening up to you. You could have, changed the course of Brexit. Come on, what happened there?
Well, we can go to that rabbit hole if you want to. That's fine. We can go there.
For a completely different podcast, but yeah.
Look, with any client, you are privy to lots of stuff that you wouldn't wouldn't share. And that's really interesting on the inside. But the key thing within that is that you have to remember all the time that whoever the person is, no matter how important their role is at a point in time, how famous they might be, it's a person, it's a body. And what we're looking at always is how can we support the individual around this to make sure they can cope, survive, get through, be focused. If you're leading the country, you don't get much sleep. It's definitely quite stressful.
Anybody else that I might know?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, lots of people, Tom Ford, Sting, with
The designer.
Adele, we've had a lot of the big guys coming in, U2 some time ago, Madonna on and off. There's a whole long list. There's a lot I can't share with you as well, lots of royal members. And look, these things are all interesting. And what's fascinating is that everyone assumes that they have life easy because they can employ someone like me and have a chef and have whatever else. It's never easy. Everyone has the same stresses, the same issues, the same concerns, the same anxieties, the same...
problems are a
it's
matter
all
of
the same
perspective.
thing. Always. And that's why what I set in place is a framework of, okay, how do we get from point A to point Z and make sure we navigate the bits along the way and support you where you need to. And going back to David's point in time, we were never going to, as an objective, and I know it doesn't mind me sharing this information, we were never going to transform his body from day one in power to the last day in power. The goal was keep you well. Let's make sure we're keeping you well to cope with the stuff you have to do. Now, if someone's getting ready for a tour, a concert tour, so here's a good example. Mel C from the Spice Girls. So training Mel, known Mel for a long, long time. If Mel's going on a tour, it's being ready for that in a specific way, to be endurance ready, to be shape ready. Ellie Goulding, same kind of thing, to be ready for performing, lungs to be working. There are very specific goals to work on. For some people, it's survival. For some people, it's focus. For some people, it's transformations. So, but ultimately, it comes down to how do we just map this out and structure your day? What's the perfect week look like for you? And what's our expectations with limitation?
Let's go to that point A, so the very beginning. I feel like a lot of people, if not almost everyone, wants to be in shape. They want to feel good. But starting is the hardest thing. What's the best way to start? So you actually start.
Well, I mean, there's no easy answer other than, as you sit there thinking about it, are you happy as you are? I mean, if you're happy as you are, sit there. Wait, that doesn't bother me. I mean, you can stay in the same shape and be there and not change yourself and not grow. Or you can decide to literally, as point you're thinking about it, just go and start to do something. Because we definitely forget how good it feels to be healthy and to do physical things. And we lose touch with what it feels like to be able to move and to be able to actually breathe well and to be a fully functioning, existing human being. So if you're concerned about it and you're thinking, I could start now, just get off your butt and do something to start.
Anything?
Yeah, anything. Because it's all about really, what's the basics? You'll die if your heart stops working. So let's make sure your heart's doing something. So the easiest way to do something is just go for a walk. So if you want to go for really, really basics, by doing that, you're going to be better than doing zilch. The other key thing is if your muscles don't function, then you can't hold your skeleton upright. So at some point, you're going to have an issue with that as well. And you will have a problem. You will ultimately degrade and fade away. So start to do some very basic movements. So you might just do, if you're on absolute basics, sit in a chair, stand up, sit down, for 30 reps, and then watch TV, and then do some more the next day.
The reason why I'm asking basics is because a lot of people think that they should start with a very heavy, hardcore, complex routine. Go 5-6 times to the gym, and that seems scary, right? It's like, I don't know, to a baby, you're not going to give it a piece of steak, right? You start giving it milk, and then slowly and gradually you introduce that kid or that person into more complex foods. So, taking that analogy, how does that milk look like for someone that is just starting their fitness?
Well, that's really where,
journey?
If anyone goes to the gym, if they decide on day one, I'm going to do something now and get going and be on it, then they will suddenly, go to the gym, do one day on a Monday, go on the treadmill probably for a bit, and then go and lift some weights on a machine they recognize for a bit, and then go home again. The next day, wake up, That feels a bit sore. That's a bit tight. Back again on Tuesday, do something not dissimilar. And then by Wednesday, Thursday, the body's in a wreck. And the neck is hurting and the back's a bit sore, and you'll wait out for 4 or 5 days to recover again. The start point is always just move. So we've got to be mobile and get the circulation levels to rise. So going to the gym initially and jumping into a 5 days a week program, and everyone does that same thing, is not the way to start. You have to be almost in the first month of starting a training program feeling as though I'm not quite doing enough. I could do more. And actually, you feel that, that's great. That's a win. It shouldn't feel like in the first month, I'm really feeling the pain or discomfort. It needs to feel like I could do a bit more than this and keep on growing it more. Because this is not a sprint. This is, we want to take a year to change someone in reality.
A year.
Yeah. So the idea
if they're starting from zero.
Start from zero. Or frankly, whatever the goal is in terms of even making some significant changes. If you have the transformation idea of we're going to do something in 4 weeks, you're not really doing anything. I mean, if you're going to, how do we look at this? If you're doing a muscular change, a sort of transformation program where you want to get sort of, jacked up, in 4 weeks, I can jack you up, I can make you look bigger and make that work, but it's all short term because we can't build muscle that quickly. Muscle builds phenomenally slowly. We can make the blood go to the muscles and make them look like they're pumped up.
Would you be using a lot of supplements?
Very. I mean, to be honest, if you want to try and increase that look, you just ram some carbohydrates in someone for a month and load of protein and then come off the carbs for a week, strip out the water, shred them a bit, take a photo before and after, and hey presto, there's your transformation. And then the following month, they go back to square one again.
Sounds very unhealthy though.
It's terrible. I mean, it's the worst thing. So our goal is always, we're going to take a year on this. We're going to have a process where in the first 3, 4, 5 weeks, we're going to start to work on your mobility, make you actually able to move. We're going to start doing some good cardio work, some good basic strength work, probably body weight based, some small weights as well. Build the ability to be resilient enough when the intensity builds, and it will, then we're going to be having you in a situation where you can cope with anything we throw at you. Because we are going to make you, by week 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, lift heavy. And we're going to do some hard VO2 development work. So we're going to have you on a bike doing 4 minutes of hard, high intensity to almost failure.
What is VO2?
The oxygen volume that circulates around your system. So your score of your cardiovascular ability is your VO2. And VO2 training done in the correct way is called a 4x4 as an example. And you do sat on a bike, 4 minutes, go to a level where by the last 90 seconds, you're wishing you weren't there. So it's super intensive. And then you get off the bike after 4 minutes thinking, my legs are dying, my heart and lungs are screaming, walk around for 4 minutes, get back on again, do it again 4 times through. And that develops your VO2, your capabilities massively. Do that to someone in month 1, you'll kill them. Yeah. So you got to wait until month probably 3.
Yeah, by the time you're asking them to walk for 4 minutes, they're going to walk away.
They're going to walk away, keep on going. So it's all about, it has to be developmental, has to be a process. We have to make sure we're avoiding unnecessary injury. There's always going to be tweaks in someone when they start a workout program. Things start to hurt and ache here and there. We're just finding mobility, finding ranges of motion that haven't been found for a while. So it's about waking the system back up and then create base stability, mobility, base cardiovascular capability, and base strength. Once you've got these things all in place, and the person can actually do things which involve some dynamism. They can do walking lunges. They can throw a ball, shoulder not hurting. They can lift the weights up and back doesn't hurt, and the neck's not screaming at them. All that stuff's in check. Okay, now you're ready to kind of up the level a bit and push harder, and then we can raise the game, and then you can make some really big changes. And if you take a viewpoint of taking 6 to 12 months to genuinely rebuild a body, then that work sticks around for years. That's true transformation.
Have you seen if there's a difference in between, from a motivational perspective, in between training in the morning or in the evening?
Yeah, I mean, in scientific terms, there's not a massive difference in terms of what your body does. Your body kind of just responds to being overloaded. The difference is how you are as being, there are morning and evening people, I mean, there really are. And you're someone who wakes up at naturally 9 in the morning, then waking up at working out at 9:30 is not a good idea. So if you're a bit more of a night owl, then you probably want to work out later in the day. In theory, the optimum time when your body is at full alertness, high circulation, is around 11 a.m. So that if you're going to choose a time, if your luxury was you had all the time in the world, I would be working at 11 a.m. You're up, you've eaten, you are mobile, you're mentally up and sharp, and you're set for a workout. So that's the ideal.
Now going to cardio, I've heard from a lot of people that cardio can kill your muscle gains. Where do you stand on this?
Yeah, so if you're trying to, there's different types of cardio. So you have
sex. I'm joking.
well, sadly, if you wear one of these things, for most people, what's funny with Whoop data is that the sex data is depressing in that it's not very long, it's not very intense. So more work needed there, guys. So
the reason why I said sex is because I've recently interviewed a fantastic sex therapist. So I just thought about it because we spoke about cardio and sex. But yeah.
Well, but the point, actually, it's a good point to think. But the sex, sex is one of the key motivations for people to exercise.
Interesting.
Without question. I did a talk down in
to have more sex,
to have more and better sex.
So to look better, to then have.
It's
sex.
all part of the same thing.
Yeah.
Let's face it. I mean, sex is such a fundamental part of our life that
I guess a lot of people also want to make money for that, right?
Well, there's that too. Maybe
it's like
that's one conversation
for so many things.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's various spin-offs to how sex works, and but from teenage boys through to whoever you like, sex is such a key central plank in our life and existence. Yeah. Without realizing it, our physicality drives that ability, motivation, and enjoyment. Yeah. So it really matters.
I feel like a lot of us realize it, though.
A lot do realize it. I was doing a talk down in Dubai a few years ago. It was a boys' school down there, and these kids were all between sort of 13 and 18, somewhere there. I said to the guy, "Well, how often do you guys? You're all working out, I guess. The gym over here, are you doing it? What's your main motivation? Is it to kind of get kind of jacked up? Is it to kind of lose weight? It's be in shape?" They're all giggling away, and one boy said, "Because of the girls." And it's just that they want to make sure they're kind of looking great, and that's come about in teenage boys because there's the footballer impact shouldn't be dismissed. The footballers being in shape, being iconic. I mean, it motivates boys to follow that lead. Which hasn't happened in girls, by the way. Girls actually are in that teenage category getting larger rather than in better shape. Boys are getting better, girls are getting worse. It's the largest growing group of fatter individuals is teenage girls between the age of, I think, 14 and 16.
Why is this?
It's a really interesting question. I mean, there's not as many girls who are doing sport. So doing PE is definitely decreased in schools enormously. Sport's not just such a turn on for girls to go and do. The distraction of all the things that girls like of hair, makeup, clothes, social circles, and so on is much more of a draw than sport has been. It's changing a bit. Yeah, the gym thing has definitely got better for girls in the last probably 5, 6, 7 years. But it's definitely a divergent group. So we need to work on that category. They're the ones that need to be really developed more for sure. And the abundance of sugary foods and drinks that are available, and teenage girls in their social circles meet in the places where those things are going to be consumed. So there's all that going on at the same time. But back to the point in terms of the sex input, I mean, the key thing with the drive for that is on a feel-good factor. To want to have sex, you've got to probably feel good about yourself. It helps anyway, at least. So part of this need to try and be in shape is to go and make sure you feel like you're enjoying the process. You want to take your clothes off and feel good about the fact rather than feel shy about the fact. From a cardiovascular point of view, it is it can be great if you're fitter and healthier, or it can be kind of short-lived and it's nothing. The cardio training that we have to try and do and link to muscle mass, there are a few types. The zone 2 cardio. Zone 2 cardio is the stuff which is the long, boring stuff. So zone 2 in your heart rate zoning is around 65 to 70-ish% of your maximum heart rate level. Then you have zone 3 above that, zone 4.
Is that determined by the intensity or the length of the
intensity? So zone 2 cardio is probably the best way to improve your cell mitochondrial efficiency.
Okay.
So each cell has a mitochondria, several, and that determines how your body utilizes and burns energy. So with good, healthy cell mitochondria, your body is very adaptive at burning away fatty acids, fat, and less glycogen, less sugar. If it's not very efficient, then you tend to steer towards burning away, consuming more glycogen, more sugar, rather than the fats. So we're not very good then at burning away our fat reserves. Healthy mitochondria are very happy sucking away at fatty acids and glycogen, and you then can lose fat mass more quickly with healthy mitochondria. Zone 2 cardio gives you the best way to improve your mitochondrial health and efficiency. But it needs to be done in a very specific way. So Zone 2 cardio is, in the bike analogy, it's sat on the bike for 40 minutes, 45 minutes at one level, don't deviate, one heart rate for the entire time. For you, probably around roughly 135, 138 beats per minute, is roughly your level, and keep the same level the whole time. At that level, you'll feel like as though, this is kind of, I'm working a bit, but it's not crazy. This is all kind of very sustainable. But as you're doing that, your body's saying, this is fine, sustainable, and I'm adapting to this is good. I can just burn away
So the
fat.
Zone 2 cardio level is an intermediate level of intensity.
Yeah. Now, the reason why that level is important from a muscle gain point of view is it will not take away from the amino acid structures within your muscle cells. So you aren't going to be asking for any more breakdown because it's all kind of low-level burn adaptation rather than sucking tons of energy.
So if I'm going for a run, it's better to run at a lower pace, longer, and enjoy it rather than doing these sprints and, burning myself.
So it's a complex answer. So you've got part one is the Zone 2 stuff, and that's good to do. If your goal is to retain muscle mass, so forget gaining size, retain the muscle mass you've got.
And lose body fat.
And lose body fat at the same time. Then Zone 2 cardio, done probably 3 to 4 days per week at that tick-along level, 40 minutes, will not take away from the muscles. On top of that, create really good cardiovascular fitness and health, which will aid your muscle development and structure. You've got to have really good nervous system responses. You've got to have really good blood feed into the muscles. So high VO2. We need to do VO2 training. So that VO2 model I said about before, doing the 4 minutes on, 4 minutes off approach, that should be done once every 2 weeks. No more than that, because it's super intensive. It will raise your capacity, but it will definitely not take away from the muscle structure.
Are you familiar with Barry's bootcamp?
Yeah.
These high-intensity trainings. Would you consider that this type of cardio workout? So
Barry's is a circuit training class. So Barry's will, you go there, you get beaten up. It will test your cardiovascular fitness. You'll do some strength work, but it's a mixture. You're not going to max overload. You're going to generally more high rep range, short recoveries. It's circuit training. So that's a way to get cardiovascularly fit. That's going to burn energy. That's going to burn calories. It will not aid you massively in retaining muscle mass. It'll keep you ticking along. If you did more cardio alongside that, then you would have a hard time retaining the muscle mass. Nothing wrong with it. It's just a style of training. You've got to be doing the VO2 work every 2 weeks. And in a normal week, alongside your 3 to 4 times doing the Zone 2, you should be getting onto a rowing machine or on a ski erg and doing 20 to 40 seconds of blasting, like a Barry type thing, blasting, hitting it really hard, fast as you can, rowing like crazy.
How often, sorry?
Once a week, twice a week.
Once a week or twice a week.
And that high intensity of doing, say, 20, 30, 40 seconds with a double or triple the duration of your work time of rest. So if you're doing 30 seconds of work, it's a minute and a half of recovery. So really long recovery. So your peaks of that intensity can be super hard every single time. That's going to give you really good cardiovascular strength, power. And that, again, will not strip away muscle mass. It will aid the development.
And this is the same for men and women?
Yeah.
Because I was discussing this with my girlfriend, and years ago, so I do and I've been doing HIIT trainings for quite some time. And years ago, she was doing that with me too. And obviously, as the relationship developed and we started to consider having kids, so on and so forth, she started researching and she found out that it's not good for a woman to be doing these HIIT, high-intensity cardio sessions, because you're adding too much stress to your body, and that potentially can impact you having a child because your body's basically telling you you're not a safe space to...
Yeah, it's absolutely right. So there's no doubt at all that doing too much of the high intensity work all the time produces vast amounts of cortisol. So this stress hormone. And with that, there can be dangers of not being able to create as much muscle mass, strangely enough, so you're actually reducing the ability to gain muscle mass. From a reproductive point of view, high cortisol can impact on the other hormone levels, whether that's on estrogen, testosterone, certainly on estrogen. So yes, definitely. Most training programs, I mean, my training program, for example, 80% of it is sub-maximal, for sure. 20% is maximal, going for it. Only 20%, maybe 15%. Now, the rest all sub-maximal. It's all ticking along. I'm within my zones. Even on lifting days, I'm not going into the gym every time and doing a big lift all the time. It's the biggest lifting stuff, maybe once as maximal level, every 2 weeks. But I overload the muscles to a degree every couple of days, but not maximum. So if we're doing maxing out all the time, we can't keep up with that. There's too much oxidative stress, too much cortisol creation. There's too much the body just can't recover from, unless you've got unbelievable recovery strategies and you're doing an IV every day and you're going to infrared sauna every other day and you're doing an ice bath every third day. And so if you're doing all that stuff, maybe.
Okay.
But even then, too much.
But this is so revealing for me because I do work out very regularly, 5-6 times a week. And because I live quite a complex or stressful life because of my work, sometimes I feel like if I over work out, so if I go to the gym, but mostly with my cardio sessions, if I just run a few more kilometers, that's going to help me with my stress levels because I'm going to release them, I'm going to feel more tired. But from what you're saying is that if I am overdoing cardio, I'm increasing my cortisol levels and hence increasing my level of stress. So it's counterproductive what I'm doing.
Depends on the intensity. So if your intensity on that extra few kilometers is that low level, that zone 2 thing, then you're absolutely fine to do that. That's all going to benefit you, actually.
If I'm not tracking that with a Whoop or with an Apple Watch, in terms of feeling tired, should I not feel overly tired after the run? So my zone 2 level, how should I feel after I finish a zone 2 level cardio session?
Like you could have kept on going.
Like you could have kept, okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
If you get to the end of the run or the bike ride and you're thinking, I'm done, that's it, then it's probably a bit too intensive. It needs to be, you get to it and say, yeah, that was nice. That was a good feeling. I feel it's a nice run. I could have gone another 3-4K. And that's zone 2. It shouldn't be, it's far from maximum.
So 3 times a week, zone 2 cardio, and then twice a week, a little bit more of a high intensity.
Yeah.
Right?
And then once every 2 weeks, doing the really high intensity, 4 minutes on, 4 minutes off, VO2 training.
Yeah.
Probably on a bike, because you can then measure directly your inputs and your levels. And that's a really good cardio blend that won't take away from the muscle mass if you're doing the muscle gaining program or strength program alongside it.
And how many times per week should we hitting the weight room?
So in theory, your muscles, if you really go for it and you break a muscle down, it recovers within about 12 to 24 hours. So in theory, in lab conditions, you could actually work out on one day and the next day in the same muscle area. But we all know that can't be done. We all know that's kind of impossible. So in reality, it takes solid 24 to 48 hours to recover from a really intensive session. So if you lifted really big on your chest on a Monday, by Wednesday, you're fine to do it again. But are you optimizing yourself doing it on the Wednesday? It's looking increasingly like as though if you're doing really high level lifting, to lift on a Monday, your best day to lift again in the same area is on a Thursday. 3 days of recovery, lifting the same area twice a week is enough to create the same growth as doing it every other day. So rather than do it multiple times, you can actually save yourself some time, do it really effectively every third day rather than every second day. So there's a way to break it down, which means you've got more time to work on other areas. So you might do, rather than doing a split of doing chest and quads on one day, and then the next day doing your back and your hamstrings, and then on the Wednesday again doing the chest and the quads, and repeat.
And would you recommend to do 2 muscle groups per session?
Well, if you're going to break it down as being, what's nice, if you're breaking it down as being every third day doing the same thing again, you have more time to actually do more things. So on a Monday, you might do your chest, your shoulders, maybe your quads, maybe your abs. And on the next day, then...
Shouldn't we be doing abs every day that we go to the gym?
So it depends what you're playing alongside it. So, for example, you're a tennis player, then you're working your abs seriously hard playing tennis.
Okay.
When you're lifting, when you're doing even a squat, when you're squatting with a bar on your back or a front squat with a barbell, you should be gripping your abs so hard that they're getting a workout anyway. So while if you're not feeling your abs working out when you're squatting, you aren't doing it right. So everything we do should be, you always brace hard, and
core,
then lift. Yeah. And it should be that gets a workout in itself. Alongside that, yes, you can do lots of other, floor, core work. Pilates done with the right person, the right way is phenomenally good at getting those core areas to really engage and be the access point that they should be. So we can add core work in, but good programming, good lifting, that gives you a really strong core workout anyway. Personally, I do core work specifically once a week, twice a week.
Okay.
And the rest is all within the rest of the programming. But bear in mind, if I'm not in a machine, in the gym, with a cable, we'll do various work on functional training with cables, or do work with kettlebells. And you're doing kettlebell work, then the nature of doing movement-based work is you're engaging the abs as you go. We're a flowing system. We shouldn't just be, today's going to be pumping out the chest, today's going to be doing a pull work. It should be we flow. They should be doing cable work, you're doing rotations and doing chopping movements and doing sort of pull-down work that's involving using your core to move. We're a flowing system. We should be thinking, how could I train my body to play a sport well? And it wouldn't be sat in a machine just doing a push, because you have to go in multi-direction changes. And therefore, we should be designing our programming to be based around how can we move.
When you go to the gym, at least when I go to the gym, I see a big disparity in what everyone is doing. Like, there doesn't seem to be a consensus on what is right and what is wrong. So you see a very skinny, small guy lifting very heavy, and I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm thinking, you're going to break your back. I mean, you're going to injure yourself. And then someone incredibly big and bulk and heavy lifting very light weights, or just maybe lifting their own body and working with their body weight. Is there a best way to do this? Or like maybe other people, they just, they work out until muscle failure. Some others, they just follow a specific amount of reps.
That's goal specific. So if someone is looking for, again, it's down to really this is where the nuancing of training is interesting. You can do strength work for power. You can do strength work for straight, absolute strength. You can do strength work for muscular endurance. And you can do strength work for size. And each of those 4 different arms has a different approach to how you go about it. Some of the things within it are the same, some things are slightly different. And the number of sets that you do, lifts that you would do, resistance you would do within that lift will vary. So the straight, pure strength gain athlete, to be able to lift up a weight once, what's the biggest weight I can lift once, will train a very specific way on creating just that thing. They'll build the absolute level they can lift again and again and again over a long period of time. And they won't do multiple sets of 8s and 10s and 15s, or is it 20? Or forget that. It's largely doing just, I'm going to lift this heavy weight, I'm going to warm up, get myself going. I'm going to lift this thing twice or 4 times, probably no more than that, to create just pure strength. The power lifter is different. They'll go through multiple sets to train the body to get used to movement. They'll then build up the absolute strength, and same as a strength athlete would do, but engage a whole bunch of other areas to create more rounded strength. So if they're a straight powerlifter doing clean and jerk, they'll do a lot of leg lifting work or squatting work. The pure strength athlete might just focus on one area, just doing, I'm going to do just my chest. I'm going to be the best chest in the world, and that's all I'm doing. A powerlifter is more rounded as a program, and they split their routines up in a different way. A muscular endurance person, probably an athlete, will do multiple sets, higher rep ranges, some pure strength work within it, some high rep range within it. So it's going to be a mixture of all sorts within that as well. And the size gain program is it's a blend of all again, a lot of sets, huge amount of sets with combinations on different days of doing high rep ranges, short recoveries, burnout. You try and break fibers. You try and just rip the fibers up and then feed them to regrow. Multiple sets. And some days are pure strength to get that base right. but it's about doing a lot of volume, high volume. So each thing varies so much. You go in the gym and look at thinking, what the hell is going on here? Because each person's doing a different thing.
It's like going to a restaurant and everyone is eating a dish from a completely different country. So now as we are approaching summer, I think almost everyone wants to lose fat, right? To look skinnier, look fitter. Is there an ideal workout routine that you can describe to me from, let's say, Monday to Saturday or Monday to Friday that anyone can follow in the gym to lose belly fat?
So fat's just fat. When it doesn't burn from one area, and it's the whole thing where if we could spot burn it, we'd make a fortune. So the program would be you'd opt to do that zone 2 cardio 4 days a week. That would be, or 5 days a week. You'd do that for sure because that's that burn thing. You'd want to be doing the short intervals, probably 3 days per week. So that approach you're doing 20 to 40 seconds, high intensity, double the time of recovery, and do it again 8 to 10 times. That's going to be on 3 days per week. On the resistance training side, for really the optimized weight loss, specifically weight loss, and fat will go within that, you'd probably go for PHA training, peripheral heart action. Very simple way you go for doing an arm thing, leg thing, arm thing, leg thing, Barry's, basically. You go for that 3 to 4 days per week. And that should be doing an arm thing, a leg thing, an arm thing, 8 exercises, rep range of probably 12 to 20 reps, somewhere in that zone. Rest for 2 minutes and do that same routine again 4 or 5 times. And don't drink alcohol. Completely take away refined sugars.
Zero alcohol.
Zero alcohol. Yeah, if you actually want to lose weight, then you should not be drinking. It's debatable drinking full stop anyway. I mean, actually drinking is... there's not one shred of scientific evidence or papers out there that gives you anything that says alcohol does anything positive.
What's worse for you to stay in shape? Alcohol or sugar? Refined sugar?
Given the abundance of sugar that we have in our systems and available, and the fine balancing act between how much sugar we can actually take on board and we should have in our bloodstream, sugar arguably is the bigger killer. And the biggest detriment to being healthy. Alcohol has a unique capability of crossing into our brain and crosses the blood barrier and gets into our system in a way which is intrinsically destructive. It has phenomenally bad impacts on how our gut microbiome functions. It is a suppressant and therefore a depressive. It strips away amino acids, so your muscle cells have a hard time regenerating. I could go on. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things there. I like a drink, by the way. I mean, the thing is...
You do drink?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's something which it's such an inherent part of our life that we shouldn't dismiss it. So for all the things that are bad about it, what is good about it, and this is not a scientific thing, there's not a physical entity with this, is socially and psychologically, it does have a benefit. So if you find that a good glass of wine with friends relaxes you and you feel good and it's engaging, then clearly it has a benefit.
Are there some alcohols that would impact us physically more than others in terms of gaining fat? Or
the sweeter and darker it is, the worse it is for you.
And darker, so red wine also?
Lesser red wine on the spirit side.
On the spirit side.
Yeah. So you take on some rum or sherry and port and those things. Then they're pretty intense.
Or like cocktails, sugary cocktails, because you have the worst of both worlds.
You might as well just kind of say you're a diabetic and go with it. Yeah, okay. I mean they're really bad. Any liquid sugar is the way to most quickly gain fat and to become borderline diabetic. So liquid sugar has pretty much, again, no positive elements. It's the quickest way to increase your calorie intake. It's the fastest way to produce a...
that includes juices, right?
Slightly different to a degree, yes. But refined sugars suspended in water are the quickest way to ensure you're going to have some form of a insulin resistance, which means you can't process sugar quickly. You'll become diabetic. So when you see someone going to supermarkets picking up these 2-liter bottles of fizzy drinks, that's the reason why the kids, when they're going to be in 2050, are going to be half them obese. That's exactly the reason why.
I have some friends that they don't go to the gym and they work out from home. They used to go to the gym, but then through COVID, lockdown happened. They started working out from home. They watching these videos from YouTube, and then they retained that. And I always think, can you actually get fit by doing that and not going to the gym, like properly fit?
No. No, honestly, no. Unless you're phenomenally well set up, and there are
you
ways.
just impacted the pocket of a lot of my friends.
Yeah, I mean, quite exactly.
Gym.
So there are ways you could potentially do it. So, for example, I use chest as an example because the chest is the easiest things to work on. If you were to do super slow training, press up position, let's say, and you spent 15, 20 seconds lowering yourself down through that press up movement, and then 15, 20 seconds going back up again, and did that for as many reps as you can do, and you'd burn out. I mean, you're going to get a huge burnout because
so it's 40 seconds per push-up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can take a minute.
That's very intense.
Yeah. So you do that, and that's going to be really burning away. So if you did that, arguably, and we've shown it scientifically too, that produces enough of a breakdown of muscle structure that it might create the strength gain that it would do going to the gym. But
until muscle failure, you should do that?
Yeah, to failure.
How many can you do?
I don't know. I've done it for a while. Yeah, it's been a long time. But the thing is, slow training is a technique, and it is very, very hard, but it's really boring. I mean, it's unbelievably boring.
Yeah.
And we've tried every method over the years and to see if they work. And slow training specifically, God, it's like having your teeth pulled out.
Yeah.
It's just, you just get so utterly bored by rep number 3, and it hurts. It really, really hurts. But there's no fun in it. So yes, you could do it, but to do what you need to be able to do and be effective, honestly, life's too short.
Going back to changing our training routine as we get older. So I'm soon going to be 30. What should I be doing in my 30s and then in my 40s that I shouldn't be doing on my 20s? Is it the resting period? Is it how heavy I lift?
So you need to, you need to sustain the heavy lifting. Mm-hmm. So don't let that drop back. The point at which, because you're now an old man, that you're going to have, a sore back in the morning or anything else, you won't for a long, long time. But if you start to have the feeling of something's aching, or I'm not, not as good as I felt before, that's not the signal to say I should slow down. That's a signal to say I should step this up and keep on pushing.
Oh.
People often get to their 30s and they say, well, I wake in the morning feeling a little bit stiff, so I thought I'd just take it easy. Yeah, well, fine. You're going to slip away quickly. So you've got to make sure that you don't slow down. So the 30s are a point where you actually sustain, maybe even amp it up a little bit in certain ways, in the right way, clearly, and don't let it drop, and work very heavily on your flexibility, your mobility, and your core strength.
And okay, then I was thinking maybe that's something that would happen gradually over the course of time. But then within shorter time frames, let's say a span of 1, 2, 3 years, if we follow a workout routine, and this is something that I experienced, my body gets used to it, and then I stop seeing results or the same level of growth as I used to see before. How often should we be changing our training program?
About every 8 to 12 weeks. So every 8 to 12 weeks should be periodized. So you have a structure within it, that within that program, it's not a case of just on a Monday, I do that machine and that machine and that machine. It's probably for 2 or 3 weeks, you do the same things, and then you add in a different thing in the 4th week, and then back to the same thing before in the 5th week, and you kind of periodize it through. So over the course of a 3-month period, you're doing a number of different approaches. So rather than just doing, again, chest example, just going to the barbell. Mm-hmm. My Monday session is my barbell. Then I do pec flies afterwards with some weights. Mm-hmm. So maybe on the 3rd week of that, you've already done that, or the 4th week, you've developed some strength within that. So I'm going to just do cable work in week number 4. I'm going to go on there, get some cable crossovers. I'll do some pullovers with cable. I'm going to do some other ways of attacking the chest in a different angle, and change resistance. So maybe week 4 might be a lighter week rather than just going up and up and up and up. You can take it down and do just a week of doing 25 reps per set, and 5 sets rather than 3, or 8 rather than 4, and change it up in that way. And then the 5th week, back to where you were again, back to that strength work in the 3rd week that you were doing. So you're going to get back on the same linear approach. It's linear, do the same, change it up, do something different, linear, change it up to something different, linear. And it's still a way of making sure.
And that's for 3 months.
Yeah, and then you reassess where you're at. You might kind of completely mix it up in different ways. Now, inevitably, there's repetition in workout routines because we're working the same areas effectively. But you have to have a 3-month look at how we construct that programming. And within that, it's not just the same thing. It's why there's not a perfect workout week, because you'll be on repeat every single week. Effectively, it's a good week you're creating, and the next week's a bit of an advancement on that, and the next one's the advancement again. And by the 4th week, let's just mix it up. We might just do a cardio week and do lots and lots of high rep work, even if your goal is strength, just to change how your body's getting some rest and recovery, get the head back in space again, look forward to going back into your lifting heavy routine the following week. It's just playing with your head a bit to make sure you feel motivated. And within that as well, it's why it's important to have something else to focus on. And back to myself again, me, it's, I like playing tennis. So for me, my goal is to be able to be fit to play tennis. So it breaks up my reason to do something. So I want to make sure I've got power in my game, I've got speed, I've got agility. So it gives me another focus of why I do something. And we all need that. So it should be, we set a goal within a 3-month period of, I'm going to go and walk the mountain. I'm going to go and take part in a 5K event. I'm going to go and play some tennis. I'm going to, whatever it might be, have something else as a reason within it to stay motivated, rather than just, I'm just going to go to the gym. I'm just going to do that. The gym is a means to an end. It's not the end. It's a tool.
Yeah, for a lot of people, it's an end for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when it comes to measuring our performance or our results, I think almost everyone, the first thing that they use is the scale. So, am I gaining weight? Am I losing weight? And then perhaps the second thing is the mirror. How do I look? Are there any other markers that we should be looking at? Especially for someone that is just starting, like body fat or all of these things.
Yeah, there's about 250.
Let's say for someone that is starting. And again, going back to the milk analogy, let's give milk to this.
The basic ones really
person.
are. The weight's one we know well, of course. BMI is useful to a degree.
Can you really simplify BMI as if I was a 10-year-old boy?
So the equation is it's your weight divided by your
Ideally
height
without math.
squared. Yeah, it's basically an equation that correlates your height and your weight.
Okay.
So, but the problem with it is, if you're high muscle mass and you're heavier, then you come out as being more on the obese end of the BMI scale. But criticisms aside of the BMI, if you're overweight and you look like you're overweight and over fat, then BMI is a useful scale to look at as being a way to say, I was 33 BMI, I'm now 25 BMI, and that's a positive change. Body fat readings are really important, definitely. So our composition is critical. The best ways to do composition, so you can stand on a scale and gives you a readout on certain scales. They're a little bit erratic. So any sort of a bioimpedance test, which it runs a small current through you to actually look at resistance in the tissues, because fat and muscle stored in wet and dry states, kind of. The bioimpedance gives us a reading of your fat, but if you're dehydrated, it thinks you're more fat than you are. So they're slightly inaccurate. There's a thing called a DEXA scan, which is really good for looking at a really accurate way of getting your composition reading. So DEXA scan's like the gold standard way to get scanned to look at your...
And where can you get that?
There's not a few specialist places in most cities that have them. They're worth doing every year and see where you're at. And it's a small... it's like an X-ray type thing. And it gives you a look at your bone density as well at the same time. So it's good, worthwhile. We do a thing called STIKU. STIKU testing is where we have you stand on a rotating plate and you have your arms to your side, and a laser scans your body up and down and gives you an algorithm-based readout of what your body fat percentage is. And that's accurate. It's pretty good. So there's ways you can do it and can access it. So those are important. Your clothing is a good sign. So, if the trousers that you wear don't fit anymore, well, you change shape. Is that in a good way or a bad way? So those are all key things for sure. I would recommend people get their blood tested every year, if not more often. The blood test gives you lots of really important key health markers, and you do need to know your key data of your white blood cell count, your red blood cell count, your cholesterol levels. We'd like to know your blood pressure. And your glucose level within your bloodstream. So all these quite simple markers. In fact, you can get tests for your blood sugar within any chemist and do that. And that's worth doing to know if you've got some problem with your blood sugar. You should get your blood tested though every 6 months to a year. Not too much, not too crazy. There's a Brian Johnson approach to this. Brian Johnson's the guy who's spending a gazillion bucks a year on living forever. His blood's tested, I think, every 3 days or 4 days. It just doesn't change much in that time. It just can't. It's impossible, other than boosting in vitamins, which are going to have a spike clear when we know it's going, because you can see it going in. So every 3 to 6 months would be at the upper end of the testing frequency. Every 6 to 12 months is about right. And that's worth doing.
I want to revisit the topic about fat loss, but approaching it from a slightly different angle. Again, as we were approaching summer, people want to lose fat. Is there a particular diet that you might recommend that will help us achieve this?
Okay. So fasting is probably a way to actually get some responses in the short term.
There's different fasting.
There are different fastings. Yeah, as we speak right now, we're in the middle of Ramadan, funny enough. So people are fasting naturally, and actually weirdly doing a 16-8 approach. The way that it's fallen this year is about 16-8. So you have 16 hours of not eating, and 8 hours in which you can as your window. That. Yeah, and it's interesting. I wouldn't do that all the time.
I do it all the time unless I really can't. But let's say 80% of my life, I follow that.
What's your reason for doing it?
2 reasons. Number one is I do feel like it's the easiest way for me to stay in shape. For sure. The one that I feel like I'm sacrificing the least and getting the biggest results. And then the second one is because the first hours of my day, which is when I'm predominantly fasted, is when I need the most energy, and I feel like I'm consuming a lot of energy when I'm digesting, if I have breakfast. So I feel like I'm sharper, I feel lighter, while at the same time very strong the first hours of the day. Like, for example, right now I came fasted to this episode. So that works for me. Obviously, there are some days that is harder than others, but ultimately I got used to it, and I do see the benefits and the results.
Yeah. So for most people, it's been successful because it's a control, and it gives you distinct patterns of how you eat. Everyone then knows you have breakfast and you have dinner, more or less, and that's really it. So it works, it's consistent, it avoids you then snacking, so you're controlling calorie intake quite successfully. Yeah. The downsides to it, and the upsides within it as well. So if you're looking at the approach of how the system responds, there is a degree of, a lot of evidence about how fasting can assist the dumping of senescent cells, dead cells. We have these senescent dead cells in our system, and anything that's dead in your system will make the thing next to it not very healthy either. So dumping out dead cells, whether that's in the body or in the brain, is crucial. So it's where keto eating and fasting approaches have been touted as being the ways trying to make that speed up and happen. And there's evidence to it for sure as well. So definitely having a fasting approach helps that process.
For those who don't know what keto eating is, what is it?
So keto eating is it's low carbohydrate, actually relatively medium protein, quite high fat. And within that process of eating, there's lots of evidence over possibly improving our lifespan. It's an anti-inflammatory. It's I have to clarify this. It's promoted as being anti-inflammatory. It's promoted as being good to reduce the stress to the gut. By being anti-inflammatory, our senescent and dead cells have a better way, easier way of extracting from our system. We regenerate well. We therefore can live longer and healthier and be more energized. Does it work? There's evidence either way, and the jury is still very much out on whether it does, of what I've seen and read for sure. With fasting approaches, so the 16-8 approach to fasting, it's not dissimilar. You're producing an environment in which for a large part of your day, you aren't adding any stress. So your body has a chance to then have to break its own resources down. The danger with that is that, and this is the debate, is that when you're someone who's working out really hard and working really hard, our brain it's the highest calorie burning thing we've got, by the way. So when we're busy working, we do burn more energy. When we're busy working out, we clearly burn more energy. If you're a generally busy person anyway, we burn energy. If you are taking on board the exact amount of food that you need at each end of that fasting process in the right format, then it's possible you could actually have enough energy present to cope with the rest of the day and all that goes with it. If you're doing anything which is especially cardiovascularly testing, then the chances are you start to run out of steam within that training session. So it depends on what you're doing on a certain day. So on days if you're going and lifting heavily in the gym, for example, or just doing lifting in the gym, then fasting is fine. You have plenty of energy you need for lifting, totally fine, a lot of sugar available, the protein's in the system anyway, you've got fats there regardless. On the days where if you were to go and do, say, for argument's sake, a 10K run, I would challenge anybody to get the best performance out of that 10K run, because there's not the ability to keep on going beyond around probably 35, 40 minutes before you start to deplete your level without having fueled it appropriately beforehand. So it depends on your days that you have set up, it depends on the intensity of them. We know, for example, that there's a great study done recently, was in somewhere in America, I forget where it was now, but there were two groups of people, I think 10 athletes in each group. Both groups did the same training session of hard interval training on day one. Group A ate then carbohydrates within half an hour finishing their session. Group B ate the same number of carbs, but 5 hours later. So effectively like doing a fasting day where you trained and then you ate later on. The next day did a training session of intervals again. Those that did not eat after they had worked out the day before were 40% down in their performance level on day two compared to those that did eat in that half an hour afterwards. So on days when you try to do a fasting day, if your workout program is such that you're going to be overloading cardiovascularly, then you won't be able to perform very well the days thereafter. So then the days when you're doing cardio work, you want to be having... That
includes also the zone 2 cardio that you were mentioning. So any kind of cardio?
Zone 2 a little less so, because the intensity is so much less that the burn rate is much, much lower. And the demands on it to do it again the next day are not as high. If you're doing high intensity work, then you'd need to have, on the day you're training, day one, carbs after that session to allow day two to work well. Now, there's no data I've seen over whether day two, if it wasn't cardio, it was strength work, how much that would dip. But I've got to assume the output on the day two strength work after day one cardio would also dip. But I haven't seen any data on that, I don't know.
So basically, to summarize what you're saying is, in simple terms, you shouldn't be fasted if you're going for a high intensity cardio session, as simple as that. Okay. Yeah. But if you can, and if you're going, if you're not going to be doing cardio, intermittent fasting, that 16 to 8 hour window, it is actually good for you.
Yeah, great evidence as well with that on preventing and reversing diabetes and pre-diabetes. And the weight loss effects of that, anecdotally, are good. So yeah, has a place for sure.
And now going back to your overall mission, which is increasing the lifespan of people. So in order for us to achieve that, what type of diet should we follow?
You have to have a good amount of protein. For sure. So for a male who is in their 30s, 40s, about roughly 1.3 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilo of body weight should be the intake. For females, a little bit less, but not very much, probably 1.1 to 1.3 grams per kilo. As you get older, you got to keep the protein levels up. It's probably a little bit less people in their 50s, 60s, 70s because they can't absorb it and utilize it as quickly. But if you're training still hard and you're doing the right things, that protein intake is critical. And that's where people go slightly wrong, is diets tend to be, in the main, quite carb heavy. So we have the energy we need, but not the rebuilding structure. Protein are the bricks. So we need to have the bricks there to build. And if we lose the structure, then we age. So focus on the protein, but don't get wild on the protein either. So I know people who take on 2 grams per kilo of body weight. So if someone weighs 100 kilos, that's 200 grams of protein per day. For context, that's 10, 12 breasts of chicken consumed in a day. That's a whole lot of chickens to try and get through. So your body can't cope with that either. And there's some evidence coming out as well of too much protein being maybe harmful for the body because it just sits in the bloodstream and causes some other bad effects of trying to be healthy, regenerate cells. So getting the blend right is important at all ages to ensure we retain muscle strength, structure, rebuilding processes, all the collagen we need as well to rebuild. We need protein to help collagen production. And collagen keeps the skin cells and the hair and the bones all functioning well. So we got to have that going in for sure. Taking on collagen as a supplement is a definite must. It's an absolute given.
From what age?
In your 20s into early 30s. You have plenty in your system when you're in your teens and 20s for sure.
So I should be taking collagen right now as a supplement?
Yeah, you should be. Yeah.
Okay.
And probably taking on creatine as well.
Really?
Yeah.
The thing about creatine, at least for me, is that because I don't want to become very bulky and big, I feel like creatine is adding water to my muscles, and I would...
It's a danger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a danger. Let's trade off within that. So I think that's absolutely right. So if you take on 5 grams of creatine per day, then it's low dose.
5 grams. Is that particularly for me because I'm 29, 180?
That's a pretty much a given for all people. It's such a low dose that it gives you what you need to make sure you get this what's called ATP production. So the adenosine triphosphate. It's a way in which we are able to access our energy, ATP, and creatine produces ATP. So we need to be taking it on to make sure we keep on being able to produce energy where we need to. So for everyone, it's a key thing for sure. As you get older, maybe a little bit more, but not by much, to be honest with you. So 5 grams is about the right level for all people.
Interesting. So creatine, you should increase the dosage as you get older, but protein, you should reduce it.
We can't absorb, we can't break down protein quite as well as you get older.
And when should we be taking creatine throughout the day?
It doesn't matter too much, actually. The body just takes it on. If you had a choice in the morning, maybe, but if you took it on in the evening, it wouldn't matter.
You're talking about a creatine supplement, right? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting because you've been talking mainly when it comes to the food that we should be eating in order for us to live longer about macronutrients. You haven't mentioned calories whatsoever. Do you think we should be counting calories?
No.
So you're telling me that you are at an 8% of body fat and you've been more or less in that range for the last 30 years and you don't count calories?
I couldn't tell you what I had calorie-wise when I was 25, 35, 45 or now. I have no idea.
Interesting.
So I have a rough idea. I could guess it. I can work it out on a piece of paper for you roughly now. But in terms of what the actual numbers are, I don't begin to count it.
Okay, so can you get a 6-pack without counting calories?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, you just keep looking in the mirror and then you look at, is it there yet? No, I'm going to make sure I just kind of work a bit harder and my protein intake critically, enough protein going in. With enough protein going in, your body automatically balances out what you need anyway. Let's come down to as well, if you can look into this as being how our gut responds to certain things too. So if you've got good gut health and you've got good gut ghrelin, which it tells you when to stop eating, and that's key thing as well. So things like the most recently, GLP-1 agitators, so Wegovy and Ozempic and all the Manjaro and so on. These are all giving your gut something which you probably already have. I know I already have it, which is a high level of ghrelin. And the ghrelin is what stops your body from eating. So, if I eat, I sit there and I sort of have some food and I'm full, I'm kind of done. And that's it. Where some people see food as being, if the food's here, I'm going to just finish every single piece of it and then think about food for the next hour as well. And what GLP agitators do when you inject with Ozempic is that they give you the thing to say, stop eating. Now, if you got that naturally, you've drawn the lucky straw in the lottery of life.
But when should we stop eating? Because I feel like there are two places within our body that basically are the decision makers when it comes to eating more or less. One is your brain, and the other one could be your stomach. And I've heard so many people say, listen to your body, listen to your body. Damn it. Sometimes if I listen to my body, I'd be massively overweight. So how can I know that I'm not overeating? So if you're not counting calories, are you measuring the grams of every food that you eat, more or less?
It's broad brush. So if you know your protein intake per day, how much do you weigh right now?
72.
Okay. So for you, if you had a target of around 120 grams of protein per day, so you're going to focus now on having in terms of chickens, it's about 6 chicken breasts, 7 per day, somewhere there. Or maybe it could be...
I eat more or less that,
Yeah, so 3-4 breasts of chicken, maybe 3-4 eggs, that kind of thing, maybe something else, that kind of stuff. By having that kind of intake of protein, or marginally more than that, maybe 140 grams, it's a lot of food to take on board. And that focus on the protein makes your gut respond in such a way where it starts to tell you to stop eating. Not true for all people, but the protein gives you a much better way to actually regulate how you eat. If you give the body sugar, especially refined sugars, then the body asks for more quickly. We get this increase in blood sugar level slightly, then a drop, it asks for more, and keeps on going. Any calorie-dense food tends to make you want to eat more. So calories, fat calories are the most dense calories you can get, roughly 10 calories per gram. Protein is about 4.5, carbs about 5, alcohol 7. And if you take on board fat, for a small little bit of it, it's super calorific. So you can, yes, take on more of that because it's easy, but then you're increasing calories. If the focus is on the protein means you fill on probably a fairly, it's dense enough, big enough, slow digesting enough to actually say, I can't eat more for now. And it regulates you in that way.
You've mentioned, so in terms of supplements, you've said that we should be taking collagen, 5 grams of creatine on a daily basis. Is there anything else that we should be taking?
100% vitamin D.
Vitamin D, especially if you live in the UK, right?
Vitamin, God, yeah. I mean, vitamin D, it should be D3 and K2 is a combination. Probably about 3,000 to 5,000 IU of vitamin D3 because we just do not get enough light. And without enough D3, it hampers our fat utilization, it hampers our testosterone production, and then we're in trouble with trying to then create muscle growth, to create fat loss.
Is it safe to say that if you don't take vitamin D3, you're going to get fatter because you're going to store more fat?
It's a distinct possibility. Yeah, you're setting an environment up in which
that
actually...
That should be the title of this episode.
Yeah. Let's say, well, it's one of the things where it's one of the ways in which you would make your body get to a place where it's less able to burn away fat. Yes, definitely. So it's one thing we have to do. And we know that when we do blood testing, we do in my clubs, the blood tests in March are always on the floor people. I think 80% of all tests we do throughout the entire year are deficient in vitamin D significantly. So we are all super low. And it takes a lot of sun to actually convert, to get vitamin D into your system. You need roughly about 30 to 40 minutes of direct sunlight to your arms and your chest and your face on a really sunny day to get what you need every day. So we don't get that.
What about protein shakes? I feel like that's the number one supplement that everyone goes to.
So you have to ask the question, what are you drinking? So which protein is it?
For me, it's isolate whey protein, so like no carbs.
And where did that come from?
Lab somewhere.
And what's in it? And is there arsenic in there, or is there other stabilizers in there, or is there something else in there we don't know about?
I mean, by the color of it, probably all of those.
Yeah. So that's the thing, we don't know. And you can get great products. You can get great whey. You can get great pea protein. You can eat collagen. Not so good.
You don't take whey protein as a supplement?
In my club, one of my clubs, we have an amazing healthy drinks bar there, and got great protein smoothies there, and I do have them, but I don't form my diet around them. So I have all of my protein from real food. Organic has to be organic. Has to be definitely not super farmed. My fish has to be wild fish. Nothing which is on a large scale basis. So it means going and sourcing good quality product, and you've got to get that protein. If you're eating chicken, again, back to chickens, that are from a mass produced chicken source, you might as well eat the package it came in, because there's no goodness in that chicken. It's limited. You aren't getting the protein you think you're getting. You're getting a whole lot of other things that made that chicken survive for a short period of time and then be slaughtered. And I'm not pro-vegan. I'm all about eating all sorts of different animals for good reasons. But what you get, how you get it, is really, really, really important. So when you're buying, has to be free-range eggs, has to be organic beef, has to be grass-fed, has to be all the right approach. Yes, it's more expensive. It just is.
Yeah.
But to get what you want from a quality point of view, to then get your system to respond, your body to grow, It has to be the same thing. What you eat is what you are.
Right. So, okay, organic protein. Now, when it comes to carbs, what are some foods that have, let's say, good carbs? So let's say, should we be eating potatoes, sweet potatoes, but maybe not rice or bread?
Yeah, I mean, it's they're all okay. So you can pick your way through all of these things. Is rice bad for you? No. Are potatoes bad for you? No. If you fry them, are they bad for you? Yeah. So are they part of your overall structure of how you consume through a day? Absolutely. So how do you pick your way through all those things? You want to really have carbs that are high in fiber, ideally. So
you keep the skin maybe of the potato and those things?
Is useful, definitely.
Yeah.
New potatoes are particularly good. They're quite low glycemic. Your body likes them. Sweet potato, the same thing. They're great, and the skin's really rich in fiber. Brown rice has more
brown
fiber.
Is better than
a little bit more fiber. That's about it, really. And again, it depends where you source your rice from, how they grew it, how they looked after it, how they treated it, how they sprayed it afterwards to keep it okay for packaging.
Jesus, should we be looking at all these things before we buy everything?
If you know too much, it's really hard to go food shopping.
You need to have a lot of time, and then B, a lot of money. Yeah,
I find it, there are points where I go for dinner somewhere and I'm probably really annoying. I do ask, is the fish from X? Is the chicken happy chicken? And often the restaurant, they don't know, or don't care, or I don't know what it is, and therefore it gets really hard to pick through where to eat. And going to a supermarket, forget it. I mean, I order my food from places that I know are organic sources and they're well sourced.
Is Whole Foods a safe, choice?
At the risk of litigation, I'm going to. It's a mixture. No, it's not. It's a mixture.
Huh.
So if you go to somewhere like in London, if you go to Dalesford, organic.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Dalesford is expensive.
For a reason.
Yeah. Okay.
But it is for a reason. Go to a butcher.
That's a good answer. For a reason. Okay.
Go to a good butcher. The best thing you can do is, rather than get your meat from a supermarket, is go to a really good local butcher, and they get good meat.
Okay. Cheat meals. I think there's, again, not a consensus on how often we should have them and how much should we go like sort of all in. How often should we have them? Should we have them actually in the first place? So
I'm a bit out on cheat meals in that eating shouldn't be a question of good and bad and structure my week. So I know where it comes from. I get the cheat meal scenario, and it's one that, without question, should be used, can be used. My ideology has always been, my background is my dad was a footballer.
Yeah.
I grew up in a household that was just exercise, sport, and eating well, and it was very much the norm. So my entire life has been structured around, this is just normal. This is not an unusual, I'm on an eating pattern. This is just normal eating. So the notion within that normal eating of it being a cheat thing is that if you pick a food, if you decide that on Friday night it's a big curry night, it's just Friday night dinner. So is that a cheat night? No, because it's just part of the mix of all of it. So your ideology needs to be, I'm not so focused on...
For me, that would be a cheat night. Am I wrong here?
I wouldn't put too much of a label on it.
Yeah. Okay, let's put it in a different way. So for me, 90% of my eating is healthy, clean eating, ideally also organic. And 10% of it is less clean. Sometimes it's just a random Friday night curry night, but some other times it's a proper cheat meal where it's proper.
It's a blowout.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think my honest opinion is I wouldn't stress about it. I think the danger with having a label of a cheat meal is only that we attach too much importance to it. And in a sense, it's just a day where you just have some more food. And the next day, you're going to have just a balance again. So if you know within the rhythm of everything that these moments come along where there are foods that you're going to just consume and take. What's a good example? This week today we're filming this are we Wednesday today? I think we're Wednesday. And I ordered from a well-known fish and chip place in the middle of Mayfair, which kind of a posh fish and chips place that I never, ever, ever get food from. I ordered a Deliveroo version of the fish and chips. I haven't had this for years. And I thought, I'm going to try that. Someone told me about this thing. So I tried it. It got delivered, ate that, tasted great. Did I view that as being a cheat meal? it's just a thing that I had, because the rest of my day is always, by nature of just being healthy eating, are fine. So I don't have the label attached to it. Was it a cheat meal? I guess it was a cheat meal in context of being a different meal.
But how often should one reward, how often should I reward myself with one of these things? Like once a week, once every 2 weeks? Like what's the rule of thumb?
It's such a hard question to answer.
Considering that I live a healthy lifestyle, both exercising regularly and then the rest of, let's say, my day-to-day, I eat clean.
If you were to, in context of if your goal is to, it's goal specific again.
Because, all right, let me frame this in a slightly different way. So for me, when it comes to cheat meals, I look at two different things. Number one is the effect that it's going to have on my body. So how much is this going to, stop my goals, my targets?
Yeah.
And then on the other hand is more from a psychological perspective. So do I need this once a week, or do I need this once every 2 weeks, so then I can actually carry on and continue this level of discipline with everything else that I'm doing in my life?
It's a really funny thing. It's something which I hesitate only because if you go back to the athlete perspective on this, athletes don't look at this stuff at all. So it's really, a good example would be Usain Bolt at his prime when he was, world champion, Olympic champion, sprinter, would eat chicken nuggets regularly. Was that his cheat meal? Well, it can't be a cheat meal because it was all the time. And he was burning at such a rate and was such a highly tuned machine that the food became just part of the process. Was it optimized? No. Was it?
So Usain Bolt was eating chicken nuggets all the time
regularly.
During his prime.
Yeah, but this is in an interview. This is what he said he was doing, and should have had a little
That's
less of them.
episode
Maybe,
title, by the way.
Yeah. So, but those revelations, and you look at most performers, most athletes, and they're not so rigid in everything being perfect all the time. If you want to have something, I'm going to have something, knowing that it's in the mix of all
but
things
also
is okay.
Because they're burning at a completely different rate than almost everybody else. It's like
They are, yeah.
It's like if someone has excess of money, they are also able to spend at a different rate because they're earning at a different rate. So I would assume it's the same with calories,
Yes,
right?
it is. Yes, absolutely. But I think the key thing within that is purely simply, what do we have to shift and move here? So is it a case of we need to increase our activity to allow then just food to be seen as being food? I'd say it comes back to being quality of food again. So we're focusing on, where's the win with this? If you're trying to go for a cheat food because you want to just have a big refined sugar blowout, then that's never a good thing. Clearly, is that part of our strategy? Never.
So if I want to, cheat meals are important in my life. As you
I can see.
So if I want to have a cheat meal, it's always better to do it with fats and carbs and whatnot, but no sugar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It is.
But it's also going to be better for my body to not go off the rails, off track. Right.
Yeah. So if it's honestly speaking, if it's now and again, it makes such a tiny difference.
What's now and again? Because that's a matter of perspective. I need to know this.
Let's say someone did it every day. So every day clearly would be a bad thing.
Okay.
There's going to be far too many calories going in. If the balance is out, if there's more calories in than out, we're going to gain weight. As simple as that. Every day, no. If it's every other day, is that going to be a big deal for you? Again, calories in, calories out. Did it matter for you? What was the differential? Let's say you were burning off at a rate of around 2,500 calories per day, and you ate 3,500. You are going to gain around a pound of fat per week, approximately, somewhere there. Let's say that every third day you had a cheat day in that perspective, or say 500 calories more than the normal. So you're eating 3,000 rather than 2,500 that your body might have needed, and without counting too much within this. In the course of a few days, that 500 calories extra every third day is about 150, 60, 70 calories per day difference. Does that matter? Could you just walk another 1,000 steps to burn it away? Yeah, could do that.
So you're like horse trading, right? So the next 3 days you need to be on 150 deficit.
It depends on how much you had and how much you're doing, and you can work it out there. So calorie counting becomes part of that to a degree. We got to have more just the ideology of, I had one day it was once every third, fourth, fifth day. If it's there somewhere, if my goals are, where they should be, my body's where I'd like it to be and it's developing, I'm okay. If your body's not changed as you want to, then you spread those cheat days out some longer.
How many calories do we burn, let's say in our 30s, without exercising, just to function during the day?
Well, level's different. So that's down to your size, muscle structure.
What's the range, more or less?
If you did nothing as a base metabolism, between 12 and 1,400 calories, probably somewhere there, roughly ish.
And if you are moving to an extent, so let's say that you don't go to the gym, but you go to the underground and you walk to the office.
Yeah, people rarely burn more than 2,500 in a day. I mean,
2,500.
Yeah, that's a high level for most people doing a normal day-to-day existence. Unless you're a big frame structure, where you burn more calories at that point. But the average frame person, it's there somewhere. It's quite easy though to think about. If you look at without calorie counting too much, look at how we consume those quick things. So if you go and pick up a frappa latte with a caramel topping and you have a muffin with that, well, bang, there goes 1,200 calories. If you go and pick up a Big Mac and some fries, and there's another 1,200 calories. Pretty rapidly on things like that, you can actually amp things up. In restaurants now, increasingly, then there are calories on the menu because they kind of have to have it there. And it's fascinating looking at what's in certain meals that you thought might have been okay and are really not. Yeah, there's a huge amount there. So putting calories in is really, really easy. That's why going for the quality of calories you're consuming makes the process much easier.
Let's stay away from food for now because I'm getting a bit hungry. What's the relationship in between exercise and our mental health? How does exercise contribute to our mental health?
So it's huge, enormous. So the effects of it are very significant from a release of production of serotonin from within the gut, actually, and in the brain as well, but in the gut specifically. We produce serotonin by exercising outdoors in particular, being in the sunlight. We get a rush of endorphin, epinephrine, adrenaline. All these things give our nervous system a way of firing up. And the synapses in your brain become more engaged by exercising, full stop. And actually, it's all exercise. So that applies to cardiovascular and resistance training in slightly different ways, but both do it. So it's vital. So we do know that people with forms of depression, it's not to say it will cure depression, but with forms of depression, it's one of the aids and benefits towards making sure we can try and find the answer to improving it. So on a lower level than that, someone's just feeling generally a bit kind of flat. Exercise does scientifically in lab conditions, it raises mood, it increases our sense of self-concept, our self-perception. So it's really critical. Alongside that, what it also does is it makes you tired and you sleep better. So by sleeping better, we suffer less with mental issues. So the sleep process is vital, critical. Without good quality of sleep, and duration of sleep is a bit debated, but the quality within the sleep that you get is really, really critical. So we need to get quality deep sleep and REM sleep, recovery sleep, to make sure the brain has the chance of having this autophagy, the dumping of the senescent dead cells, and the chance of the hormones to redevelop within the system, whether that be your cortisol levels, that's your testosterone levels. It's all part of our sleep process to regenerate ourselves in that way. And all these things are creating mood changes. So exercise helps to get tired enough to sleep better.
I've seen in friends that when they are at a low point over a period of time, from an emotional point of view, it becomes harder for them to stick to their workout routines and also to a healthy diet. How can someone stay or stick to this level of discipline when you're at an emotional low?
Yeah, it's hard. I think people shouldn't give themselves too hard a time. So I think that when someone's feeling low, we've got to sort of slightly define between feeling a bit low and being actually depressed. And being stressed. So I think there's, I'm Generation X. So for me, you could throw me through a war and just say, yeah, I'm going to go with it, it's all fine. I think increasingly over the last 20 years, there's been the ability, in a positive way and some negative ways, of being able to actually be in touch with your emotions, respond to those things. And the danger with that is it can drag you up or drag you down. So I think that there has to be a degree of not dismissing your emotional self, but actually not being swayed by it too heavily. And remembering all the time as well that the only way to try and solve a thing is to take action. And we can't just wait for things to go away or change. If we're affirmative, then things do change. So this idea that when you're feeling down, I can't get my act together to go and be good to myself, whilst I understand it, it is, of course, we know the thing that will help. So it's that rational self approach of, what's the why within this? Why would I go and do exercise? Why would I go to the gym? Why would I bother with this stuff? What's it going to do for me? Well, we know that it's all positive. There are no negatives mentally to exercising. There are negatives mentally to pushing to the point where you have to go too extreme while you're not feeling your best. So if you're feeling highly stressed, your body's in a highly stressed state, then exercising at a very high level just produces more cortisol, which is not a good thing. If you're feeling down, we know that cardiovascular training in particular, the walk in the park, simple, or a run the park, produces this increase in serotonin. There can be, if it's with a friend, it could be some oxytocin. You might get this kind of good feel-good hormones released. You might get some adrenaline push, some epinephrine push, all this sort of feel-good stuff. So you got to remember and be just a bit strict with yourself over, I'm not going to push hard. I'm not going to do nothing. And by doing something, you also probably take away the temptation of doing other things that are going to make you feel worse. Those people that do nothing, probably going to drink a glass of something to try and feel better, or have a treat snack to feel better, knowing that they make you feel worse. But if you go and do something, it mitigates some of that. At least it fills some time, and the effects can be good. So it's not easy. Look, when things are tough and you're down and you're feeling like your worst, lowest ebb, there's no easy answer. And do you want to go for a walk if it's raining outside? God, no. But doing something, just to make sure you're actually physically moving, is good. Or worst case, it's a point at which you think about doing something else which is good for you too. So it takes some time to meditate. You learn a meditation practice and do that regularly. And give yourself a chance to mentally take a break and reset. The meditation process does fire up the brain activity in a very positive way. So a friend of mine who's a fellow at Imperial College, specializing in the brain, I said to him, look, if you're going to scale through the things you can do for your brain that would be good, and you started with ayahuasca here, and then psilocybin here, and so on, what's the best thing? He said, well, ayahuasca, whilst it's interesting, is like throwing a device into your brain, and it just goes, and then it might rebuild, but we're not quite sure. Psilocybin is a way which actually you put a device in there, and it kind of gives you something to change and get some synapses working, and it's probably good, and it's interesting as an area. He said, there's one thing you can give to people to make their mental health get better, it would be meditation every day, and that's scientifically proven to make the brain function in a way which staves off some depression, gives you more focus. So of all the things you could do that are cheap and simple and less brain exploding, probably meditation.
Matt, if you had to compress all your knowledge that you have acquired in the last 30 years of your career into one essential advice that we should all follow, what would it be?
All of my life into one sentence. I think fundamentally, the key thing definitely is to be totally conscious of what you are, the shape that you are, the health that you are, and don't assume that the chronological aging of time means you're getting older. So be very wary and conscious of the fact that time is purely simply that. It's just time passing, and we have the ability to stay as we are, slow down the clock, and have age be literally just a number, and be healthy and well the entire time. But that takes diligence. It takes looking at every single facet in detail, and don't be forgiving of yourself in terms of saying, I'll be okay. Because if you do nothing, you won't be okay. Doing nothing is the way to ensure you will die 10 years younger. Doing something is chances of living 10 years longer. So it's really being very highly aware of maintaining and being the very best version of yourself. You owe it to yourself to be the best version of yourself. That's what we're here for. We're not here to just dilapidate. We're here to do something. And within all of that, I would say as well, it's really important to remember that what matters overall, having said that, what matters is not the aesthetic. So the aesthetic is interesting. It's fun to play with it. I play with it. I work out for shape stuff. It's not what matters. What matters when it comes to it, when you get to being 50 and 60 and 70, is how healthy you are. The focus has to be on your health span, not the aesthetic. The aesthetic is a side product, a byproduct. It's not the main goal. So know that your heart is strong. Know that your muscles are strong. Know that your bones are strong. Know that your mind is functioning well. Sleep well. Don't drink too much. And just be generally moderate in most things all the time, and you will live for longer. We know that for sure.
You're definitely the living proof of what you're saying. I mean, you don't look 50, so age is definitely just a number. And I don't think I remember a person that looks as healthy as you do.
Thank you.
But thank you, Matt. Thank you for coming and sharing all your knowledge. Fitness, as probably you can tell right now, is a fundamental pillar in my life. And the reason for this is because it is the one thing that had a profound impact in multiple aspects of my life. So usually in every other thing that I do in my life, there is one thing that I do and there is just one result. But in this case, the result is really across multiple aspects of my everyday life. It helps me develop a very disciplined mindset. It makes me a better boyfriend, professional, brother to my brother, and the list goes on. And I thank you for being at the forefront of this and helping people get on this incredibly important, life-changing journey.
Thank you. Well, look, what you're talking about there actually is creating resilience. And your physicality, your health and well-being creates resilience. And to be successful in business and beyond that, successful actually reality in life. And it's not just business makes you life successful. It's other things. It's family. It's how you spread what you learn with those around you as well. And that's living a good life. It's not just the amount of money you make. Yeah. It's about everything else that goes underneath all of that. And when you get to the point in your life when you're 60 and 70 and you know that your group around you have shared that with you, it shows you've been successful. And it takes resilience to go through all the highs and lows it takes in life to get to that point. And that's tough. And being healthier lets you get there.
100%. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.